Today's episode is brought to you by the Lunar New Year Overwatch event.
Drop the beat!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I am your host, Abel Evans. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Oh, hey, sorry, I must have fallen asleep while you were talking about who's sponsoring our episode this week. Oh, not too much, man. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Really?
You
don't like the
Oh,
Chinese New Year?
Not at all. It's just it couldn't miss me anymore. I'm just not into the Asian culture stuff that's swept the United States by storm, at least in the nerd realm. I don't know. I don't dislike it. Like, I mean, it seems I'm very much so in the minority. So if people are happy with it, by all means. But I sure wish my loot boxes would be regular ones.
But I mean, what do you even need from the regular ones anymore?
Gold.
That's true. Getting skins that you don't want is worse than getting duplicates, because at least you get some small pittance for your troubles. But
maybe I'll get lucky and it'll be like the winter event, and I'll just open nothing but regular legendaries anyways. And that would definitely be ideal, but I won't keep my fingers crossed for that one. That's probably just not going to happen. The thing with skins for me anyways, I'm never big on the cosmetic stuff to begin with. It's always, I just want to have this stuff so that way down the line when new people come in and I'm playing with them and they couldn't possibly own it because they didn't play and they're really jealous of my skins, like whatever skin I own that makes people the most jealous regardless of how I feel about it is the one I'm going to snap pick no matter what. So.
Yep. Legend skins for legend players.
Yep.
But, so I don't know how to think about it or what to think about it or if I like it or not, but hasn't even come out yet. Well, actually, by the time you hear this, it might have come out, but we're in weird podcast present, past, future, so we don't know. We're assuming it came out.
Yeah, I've pre-downloaded it in my Blizzard launcher. I caught that this weekend. That definitely happened, so that really leads us to believe that we're likely to see the patch go live tomorrow in real life time, yesterday in podcast time. So, yeah, it's probably going to be a pretty light episode this week because we've got a couple tournaments to talk about, and then anything we could analyze or discuss about the metagame, anything like that, is almost certainly to be outdated by the time you guys listen to it.
True. Of course, every single time we've said it's going to be a light episode, it's gone just as long as every other one.
Oh, yeah, light on actual content. I'm sure we go just fine on tangents and rants and things.
Yeah. But let's keep it right on schedule, and we have a little housekeeping to do, and Deathblow, I believe we have a new iTunes review.
We do. HP Vegan, a name I definitely recognize. A longtime listener finally stopped by, gave us a review here, 5-star rating on the review, says Fave OW podcast. This is the only podcast you need if you're looking to follow the pro Overwatch scene. I've been listening for months. The hosts are cool and they know quite a lot. The way I see it, it doesn't make much sense to attempt to get better at the game via a podcast. There's only so much strategy that's going on or going to be digested in any audio format, so why not listen to one that approaches the industry, social, and esports aspects of Overwatch? Thank you very much, Vegan. Really, really appreciate the kind words and the feedback. Anybody that doesn't know, this is by far the best thing you can do to promote and help the podcast out.
Yeah.
We dropped a spot in the list, at least when you search the word Overwatch, we dropped a spot. So obviously, the more ratings, the more, likes, downloads, anything you can possibly do to interact with the podcast on iTunes will certainly help us quite a bit. So we would appreciate any help you can give us. And again, the number one thing you can do is leave a review.
Yeah, and we understand that iTunes is the worst piece of software that people use a lot. Like most softwares evolve and get better over time. iTunes is not one of those. It's been just as bad as it's always been and probably always will be. So we empathize with you. we both have had to do it, but it is absolutely the number one thing you can do to help us out, promote the show. So if you are listening every week and you want to support the show, head over to iTunes, throw us a review. If you guys are listening, to the podcast form and not on YouTube, or even if you're just listening on YouTube and you have a podcast player, hit the subscribe button in whatever podcast player you have. I have one that's called Podcast Addict. I don't know where it pulls the feed from. I think it might actually be from iTunes. But all those downloads, all those subscribes, regardless of where they come from, super, super helpful to us. Literally more helpful than you giving us money. Like, I mean that sincerely. I would rather you leave an iTunes review than send me a check for $10,000. Okay, that's not true, but the cutoff is $10,000. $9,000, just leave me an iTunes review. $10,000, I'll take the check. But yeah, but we really do appreciate it. HP Vegan, I think might be the. I'm trying to think. I think he or she might be the longest time lurker in my streams that has literally never said anything.
Well, the name's definitely familiar.
I thought the same thing, and I'm like, where have I seen that before? Oh, and I do the stream faux pas of calling out people who are lurking every single time I see them. I don't care what people say or
right.
I've watched a lot of videos and read a lot of stuff on improving your Twitch stream, and most people say don't call out lurkers. I laugh in the face of those people and call them out. I couldn't possibly care less. If you want to come to my stream and watch, I'm going to try to interact with you. That's who I am. If you don't like it, I don't care. You literally don't have to be here. But HP Vegan, despite me calling them out every time, has stood fast and not responded, and I respect them for that, and I really appreciate the iTunes review. And honestly, I really appreciate that the thought put into that iTunes review as well, because it's definitely an interesting way to think about the show. Yes, you're not going to necessarily get that much better by listening to any given podcast, unless they're talking about a specific strategy that you can try, but that might be a little bit better. So you might as well listen to the one that the hosts have the most fun and know the least about over. No. Why not listen to the one where we go on tangents and talk about nonsense for 90% of the show? I mean, come on. But
sounds good to me.
Speaking of tangents and talk about nonsense, let's talk about what we did last week. Deathblow, do you have anything noteworthy you want to talk about? I know you had tryouts and stuff last week, and I know
yeah, a couple tryouts. I'll hit you up when anything notable comes out of them. A lot of tryouts this week, and it's bad out there, guys. It's bad.
Give us a noteworthy detail or story about the tryouts. I know you talked a little bit about them in the patron Discord, but
yeah, I mean, it is what it is. There's my rating. I don't think is an accurate reflection of my skill, since I've basically been a non-participant this season throughout most of it. And the tryouts tend to not go great. Usually they are newly formed teams, so nobody has synergy with each other, and you're going into these 6 stacks, and you're pretty lucky to come out with a 500 or 50-50 win rate in your first day playing as a group. So it's really tough. The one, notable, I'm not going to name any names, I'm not trying to shame anybody or anything like that, but the one team that I was leaving the recording to go try out, everything went great. I was super pumped. I'm I think we went 3-2 or 2-3 or something like that. But we were coordinated. We seemed to group up. We were able to identify what was going wrong when it was going wrong, and that's what I look for more than anything, especially in the tryout phase. And it was just a matter of
shame.
Game 1, the one guy's okay, so who's the shot caller? Who's the voice I'm listening to? Oh, we're not going to use a shot caller, blah, 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 all these things. Okay. And it's possible. There's, top-level teams out there that don't designate a single shot caller. They just communicate, and depending on...
that we're just going to not talk.
Oh, yeah. No, that wasn't that we weren't communicating, but, we're not top-level teams, right? And especially at the beginning when you're still trying to get that semblance of strategy and get people to think about the game and react in ways differently than they've been in the past and differently than solo queue warrants and things like that. I just feel like it's really needed. And I asked the guy, I'm like, so how come we're not going to use a shot caller? I was really disappointed to hear that. I'm not saying it's a deal breaker. He goes, I never said we're not going to use a shot caller. And this is like 12 hours later. I'm like, okay, you definitely said that. And he goes, but it's usually the off-tank role. It's not usually the off-tank role. It's usually the support role that does it. He goes, so do you want to do it? And I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. I just switched from support to off-tank so that I couldn't be asked to shot call anymore and then be a huge disappointment when I can't do it well. And so it was just this nightmare. And I don't know, right now I'm struggling more with, all right, practice is at 9:30 tomorrow, and then 9:30 tomorrow rolls around and it's me and two other people sitting there. Like,
God, that is the worst. Like it might be like that I grew up with my dad having been in the military, and his like MO is like early is on time and on time is late. So like anytime people are late for something that's even of mild importance, like it irritates me to no end. Like I almost ended a business relationship because the person didn't show up within like 5 minutes of a meeting that we had scheduled.
I mean, I'm prone to lateness.
I am too sometimes, but not for anything of importance.
Right, except for the podcast.
Like I said, not of anything. I won't show up. I won't show up to work on time.
We pre-record. We release it 2 days later. The timeliness of us being here to do the local recording is not a huge deal, but I just had to take my shot. So, but yeah, and I come from World of Warcraft, where when I ran a guild, it was 40 people need to be online at the same time. I can't manage 6 people in this game, but I used to manage 40 people in World of Warcraft. And it was, like you said, I mean, you need to be there 15 minutes before the scheduled raid time. We're pulling at that time. We're starting the fights then. So you need to log on, get there, get everything you need, be ready to go. And then, like, I don't want to see your message in Discord that's, sorry, guys, dinner just finished. I got to go. No, you plan it. Like, I swear, just be like, I need to be done with dinner at this time. And if you're 3 minutes late, I'm not that guy. I'm not going to care. But it's that you're 25 minutes late because you told us right on time or you didn't show up to begin with. Like that stuff just drives me crazy. And so I left one team because of that. I'm just like, listen, we're not shot calling. We're not showing up on time. Like, we only have 2-hour practices anyways. So if we're going to all be 45 minutes late to them every time, we're never going to get anything done. So I'm out. So with that said, I got more tryouts this week, so that'll be great.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well hold out for something that actually works, right? Like, there's no real benefit to pushing unless you like want to do tournaments soon. But like, there's not even really the Gosu Gamers weekly tournaments anymore. So like, what is the?
There is still a lot of smaller end stuff.
It's true. There are a lot of those like Razor Cups and or what is it, Rivalcade Arena, where you could play against some really good teams. CLG was in one of those. But yeah, no, I would definitely hold out. Might as well.
Yeah, like my most recent post advertising that I'm looking was like, you have a shot caller or don't message me.
Caller. Be reasonably on time.
Right.
Care about other people's time.
I'm having expectations now when I go in other than just like 6 people that are willing to try, which is really what I want. But like at the same time, that's not what I'm getting when I ask for that. So I'm going to ask for the moon and then just accept when people fall short of it, I suppose.
I mean, it kind of makes sense because people are treating this like a video game and not like a job or a business or even like a sports team. Where like, at least when I played basketball, it was like if you are not on time, you're going to be running all practice, and like that you just get that instilled in you. And like not like a fear necessarily. I mean, when you're younger, it's a fear. Like a legitimate fear of running, but it's more of a respect, for other people's time because you're wasting, the coach's time, your teammates' time, your parents' time, whatever. You're wasting people's time. You're wasting your own time, and it's just a terrible habit to be late like that. So, and I think a lot of people, especially like considering that it's a video game, like people don't take it seriously, or they take certain aspects of it seriously, but not others. Like you're
Right.
playing video games. It's like I want to play competitively, but you don't think of those other factors as important or as important when really like it's just as important.
And to me, the only thing that bugs me is like, let's say, like the last time it happened was on Friday, and I have a routine on Fridays. I come home, I sleep until midnight, just because why have a normal sleep schedule anymore, right? And like, so I come home and
Start
I take
the
a nap
weekend off
after
right.
work, right, and like I want to be up late playing video games on the weekends and stuff because it's not video games aren't popping at 8 o'clock in the morning when I, so I flip my sleep schedule a little bit, and I didn't do that because there was a scheduled practice time, and I don't care as long as I'm getting good video game time in. That's what I'm looking for on my weekends. So, and then nobody shows up, and it's the people that do are the ones that are punished, right? So it's everybody that skips is just, oh, whatever, fine. I don't care. I wasn't there anyways. You didn't inconvenience me at all. But those of us that sat there for 45 minutes waiting for everybody to show up, like you just told me, I don't care about your time. Like it's not relevant to me. I couldn't be bothered to drop a note on Discord.
Yeah, you just need to blacklist those people.
Anyways.
Speaking of not going on tangents, also, you need to go back and listen to this segment afterwards because I peppered in some Shane Bell at great times.
Oh, that's good.
Shame. Shame.
Like right now.
Yes,
Shame.
I figured.
If you go
What would
back
you do
and
this
look-
week, man?
I marathoned a show called Man in the High Castle.
Yes.
And because this is not movie nights with hexagrams, I'm not going to go into extreme detail. Patent pending, that show still needs to happen. Actually, I'm going to message him after this because I forgot about it until now. But it is a show on Amazon, Amazon streaming or whatever the Amazon Prime video services. If you have Amazon Prime, you have access to it. If not, you can find ways to get to access to it. But it is a show basically about the 1960s, early 1960s in America, except that the Nazis won World War II. So you can, like, that is the initial premise. I will say that it has a sprinkling of Lost in it, where Lost, like if you imagine Lost is like taking a heaping scoop, like 2 heaping scoops of weird like time travel stuff. This is more like a very light sprinkle, and you're not even sure. At least as far as I am. I finished the entire first season and am about 4 episodes into season 2. It is very good. It is very well done. A very interesting premise. The characters are likable and intriguing and deep characters. Like it is very easy to make the Nazis these like mindless, bloodthirsty monsters that just want to kill people all the time. And really, it's very easy to accentuate and show the darkness of the Nazi regime. Like that's easy. It's been done, since it happened, or since people started. It was appropriate to start, documenting and writing fiction and stuff about Nazis. Like it's very easy to show the like evil Nazi. It is a much more delicate and interesting, in my mind, balance to watch the human side of these people who are Nazis. And what's even more interesting is that these people are American Nazis because they're people who live in a Nazi-controlled America who are Nazis that were born in America. They're American people, or they were born in America. I guess they're technically like Nazi or whatever. I don't know. It's really interesting, and there's some really interesting characters. Now, don't get me wrong. There are definitely evil Nazis, and Hitler, who is Hitler. But long story short, even though I said I wasn't going to go into it and then absolutely proceeded to do so, 10 out of 10 recommend. If you have Amazon Prime, go watch it now. If you like World War II at all, and like World War II culture, Nazi Japan, any of that stuff, like just 10 out of 10 interesting. It's also a book too, which I'm going to buy the next time. I'm going to buy the next time I go to the bookstore.
Well, the one thing I'll say about that rant is that I did not see that coming.
Hold on. Wait.
Shame. Shame.
You know what you're getting right now.
Shame.
There's no shame. No shame in a good pun, my friends. No, don't let anybody shame you for making puns.
Oh, God. But
anyways, so I failed at tryouts, and you failed at leaving your couch, so you won the weekend. So let's look at what the people did this week.
Oh, yeah. That would be great if I would have done any of that.
Yeah.
So I lost the weekend.
What kind of bell do you get when you screw up entire segments of the show?
Yes, even though I control the sounds, I will
Shame.
respect the show enough to give myself a shame bell. But while we're using sound effects, let's just move right along to It's Tournament Talk. Already just nonsense. But got a couple of updates for the tournaments. I want to check in with Apex Season 2, and the check-in is that there really haven't been that many matches. There's a couple here or there, but I won't mention them right now. We will be checking back in with more of that Apex as the tournament actually develops, but I'm not going to talk about match by match. But we also got the NGE Winter Premiere tournament has now advanced to the Final Four, as it were. And in the Final Four are Immortals, Complexity, Kungarna, and LG. And notably from the top 6, the 2 teams that are no longer in the top 4 are the 2 teams that me and you picked as our winners, Renegades and Liquid. So rip High Noon Podcast betting on these tournaments.
Yeah, the Overwatch NGE has been a wild event so far. I really can't vouch for it enough. I love the format. I love that everybody is playing everybody so often. It's really, forcing there to not be, like, we've seen how many hot streaks from these teams, right? Both Renegades and Liquid went on a tear and just destroyed certain segments of this tournament, but couldn't make it into the top 4. And if you look at it, the number 1 seed is Complexity, who just barely snuck in the last round of cuts. And you've got Immortals at number 2. Both of those teams went 4-1 through their last group stage. Kungarna is in the 3 seed, and Luminosity is in the 4 seed. So presumably we should see Luminosity Gaming against Complexity and Immortals versus Kungarna, and I'm really excited for it. I think it's really very open in the sense that any of these teams has a very, very serious chance at coming away with it. LG would be the underdog if they didn't just do so well, this weekend in the Alienware Monthly Melee, which we'll talk about soon. And Kungarna has been another one of those teams that's been really hot. They've been performing really, really well lately. I love some of their names too, like Baby Bay, Connor J. Some of those guys. I don't know. Connor J is not even like an innovative name. I don't even know why I like it so much. It's just something about the way it rolls off the tongue.
Well, my name is actually just Connor Jackson, man.
Right. But anyways, they've definitely been on a tear lately and doing really, really well. So I'm excited to see this play out, and it will be a LAN to finish things off. So it's PAX South they'll be playing at, and it will be this next weekend. So I believe it's the 28th and the 29th that we should see it play out. So a lot of fun and very, very soon.
Yeah, I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with the format of this tournament. I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw it, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be another one of those tournaments that just goes on forever, and we're just gonna check in with it. It's gonna be I really agree. I've liked this tournament format. Like, it was a relatively small pool of teams, but they played a lot. And they played the same teams multiple times over. So we're actually going to see, in theory, the best team come out on top, which almost, it kind of plays out to what we may have expected going in, with the exception of probably FaZe being the biggest upset in terms of just flopping. But Complexity has been a consistent, tier 2 plus team for quite some time. So, playing it out with, cutting out the streaks, you'd think Complexity would probably be a top team, and here we are after all these rounds of play. Complexity didn't necessarily go on the same sort of streaks that the Kungarnas, the Immortals, even the Renegades have gone on, but Complexity's just been consistent, and in a tournament style like this, the consistency is what ends up taking it. Whereas, the Alienware, the Alienwares, the Ghost of Gamers weeklies, a lot of these smaller form tournaments, it really is like, did you guys have a good day? Were you guys gelling really well that day? And did you spike it? It's like the difference between, a PTQ and the Pro Tour, to go back to the Magic. Like, you need to be having the right deck, be playing really well, and just spike your luck to win an old format PTQ. Like, you need to just rattle off a bunch of wins in a row, some of which you probably didn't deserve. Whereas a Pro Tour, there's way more rounds. The cuts to make the next day are way lower, so people with worse records are going to make it into the next days. And it allows you more time to show your consistency and accrue enough points to make it into the top 8 or the next day, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously spiking a Pro Tour is still possible, but the consistency and the consistently good player is going to be rewarded more than the, lucky player or the one that just had a really, really great day like a PTQ would afford you. So I personally really like this tournament style. I don't think we want to see a bunch of these types of tournaments. Because there's just not enough teams to populate more than probably 2 of these. Like, the Apex and this is probably exhausted. Like, you're gonna have to find a team and start playing in the tournaments if they run another one.
They could run this. This is NA only. So
exactly. I was just gonna say, until we start seeing more of the mix of the regions. But the one thing, or the last thing I want to say about this, is that this makes me really excited for Overwatch League, because this is like almost like probably the closest thing we'll see in terms of form for the possibility for Overwatch League, like where we're going to be seeing like the rivalries can come from these types of tournaments, right? Like the same team is playing against. They're playing each other multiple times in the same tournament. So, like, you don't have to wait till the next tournament series, the next weekend or whatever. You might have to wait a certain amount of time, but you don't have to wait till the next tournament series to get your revenge and, outplay the other team. Like, you have the ability to, make it up, beat the team that beat you already, which is really cool. It is really cool for building those rivalries and building the fan bases. Like, yes, I want to see, Kungarna beat Complexity. I want to see LG beat.
It's something we haven't talked a lot about it, but it's something that divisions in the Overwatch League will do quite a bit. They've talked about the vision of the league being global, and that's going to mean there's going to be South Korean teams and U.S. teams, and that's a whole lot of traveling to do. They're not going to ask them to do that on a weekly basis, Yeah. So there's going to be things that we see in traditional sports. There's going to be divisions, which means you're going to play more oftenly against teams that are geographically nearby. That'll help with logistics, and there'll be things like road trips. It's something you see more in hockey and baseball, where if you need to go to the West Coast, they have set up your schedule so that you go to LA, and then from there you fly to San Francisco, and from there, you do them all in one trip. So that's going to lead to a lot of these repeat opponents and rivalries. It's going to get a whole lot of fun, and I think it's going to be the most fun once the fans get into it, and the fans adopt the rivalries that the teams are seeing. So something definitely to look forward to in the future, and also just watching the way these upstart teams are able to make splashes in these tournaments. I mean, everything aside, I thought that what Renegades was able to do in this tournament was still very, very impressive. So much of esports and sports in general and everything, and it will come down to how good are you on this day. It doesn't matter if you were the first seed or the sixth seed when you enter into the playoffs. It just matters that you're playing your best when you get there, and you're able to beat the best teams in the game once you're there, not what happened the whole time. So a lot of that still plays into it, and I think it really shows a lot of encouraging signs for teams that are coming up, and the Alienware Monthly Melee kind of blows the Renegades' performance out of the water. But as far as
that puts the
concerned,
hammer down,
it does puts the hammer right down on new upstart teams. So
well, Renegades had a week or two to be in the spotlight.
I'm really excited, but I'm going to put you on the spot and make you tell me who you think's going to win amongst these four.
So, man, I'm going to pick the potentially most upstart team, and I'm going to go with Kungarna. I think that they are, they more than any of the other teams, for obvious reasons, are. I don't think Kungarna's not a sponsored team, right? They're just people.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. They have the most to play for right now. Obviously, the prize money is there, but that's the same for everyone. Kungarna has the ability to play for their TSM jerseys or their, now again, this is not confirmed by anything except for me wanting, their Echo Fox jerseys, their Virtus Pro jerseys. Who knows what huge esport organizations coming in. Their Dallas Cowboys jerseys potentially, which we'll talk about in just a couple minutes. But LG, Complexity, and Immortals, they've got their jerseys. They've got their sponsor. They've got that infrastructure. Kungarna, as far as we know, is just a bunch of guys, obviously professional level players, but they don't have that stability. They don't have their team. They don't have, even if they plan on being together, they don't have that sort of stability to know what they're going to be doing next month. If one of the guys got an offer to be a sub for Cloud9, what is to say that you're not going to do that, right? Even if you're, if you, Deathblow, are on Kungarna right now as their tank player, and Cloud9 reaches out to you and says, hey, do you want to be, our seventh guy, our tank sub at the Apex tournament? Do you not just snap take that?
Me personally, no, I would.
You wouldn't join Cloud9 for a full Cloud9 salary.
Sponsorship?
You're on the team. You're getting the salary.
Only because in this scenario, I'm on Kungarna and I'm on a team that's right on the edge of getting sponsored. No, I would stay put and stay in a spot where I'm more likely to be highlighted and featured with the league coming up. I wouldn't. I totally get what you're saying, and I'm not even saying I'm making the right call. It's just the call I would.
I don't say you're necessarily making the wrong call either, but I think it's definitely that is the type of thing that okay, maybe you don't make that choice, but I think a lot of people probably do. It's like. You show me that Cloud9 hoodie with my name on it, and even though I'm not the starter, I can get there, man. I can get there. Right. And also, you're getting flown to Korea because we're going to be playing. And
that's another downside.
Oh yeah, that's right. The
I don't even want to go to California.
Yeah, that
it might not
true.
be snowing there right now.
I did try to convince you to go to BlizzCon 2 years in a row, and you wouldn't budge on either. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. They to get back to the point, they have the most to play for. Everyone is playing for the same amount of prize money, but Kungarna is really tailoring themselves to be picked up. That they're, well, I mean, maybe. Oh no, Hammers is its own org, right? Hammers Esports.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Kungarna right now, with the exception of maybe Spicy Boys, is the the top team that's not picked up that is like the next in line to get picked up, as far as I can see. So, and a win at a relatively big esports event, probably one of the longest form events that's not been in Korea. Like that's a huge title to pick up and a huge bargaining chip if you get approached by, TSM or Echo Fox or any of these things. Like that's got to be worth that's worth a tangible amount of money in your contract to have that title.
Right.
So, I'm picking Kungarna, but who? Long story short, I'm picking Kungarna to win. Who are you picking?
I'm going to go with Immortals on this one. They've been the most rock-steady team throughout all the stages, and I just feel the most confident that they're going to show up and play their game and give it a really honest go. I'm not super confident. Obviously, the way Complexity played in the second half of the group stage, was very, very impressive. Got the same record. I don't remember who each team suffered their loss to. But, it was definitely, they seemed to kind of get things back under control a little bit when they seemed shaky after the first group stages. So, if they can keep it going, I would probably swap my pick, but Immortals is really, they've just been kind of the forgotten team for me for so long. Like they're the one that deserves to kind of be at the top of that tier 2 list. Yeah. And I just always forget about them and never give them their due. So while my boys Fnatic are overseas, not doing well from what I hear, and the other top teams are over in the APAC tournament or the Apex tournament, then I'm going to give it to Immortals this time around. And see, but like I said at the beginning, any one of these four really does a serious shot with those top dogs not in the event.
Yeah, I don't fault you for picking Immortals, but this, we've had this long form tournament, but now it is that short form traditional playoff. So yeah. I'm giving it to the team that's going to that has the ability. The big they're playing for the most, so they in theory are motivated more than any of these other teams. I think if they can dig deep and really pull for this tournament and spike it, I think they have the best chance to do that, to have that type of performance. Whereas, like, if we were playing, another series of round robin and whoever had the most points at the end was the winner, I'd probably go with, Complexity in a longer form playoff. But if we're just going for who's going to spike it, I'm going with Kungarna. But we will recap that when that is over. But let's move on to the tournament I thought we were going to talk the most about, but we've talked so much about the winter premiere that it might not be the case. But the Alienware Monthly Melee is back and also featured our good friend Hexagram's back behind the mic, which was great to see. I thought he disappeared. I thought he was gone.
It was definitely great to see him again, and so he can kind of shake some of that rust off. Hopefully they get some more events over there on the Gosu channel. Yeah. He seems to just be a mainstay over there, and him and ZP is just the dream team from a caster standpoint. But speaking of dream teams, and coming in this event specifically tied together, I think it's pretty safe to say that we were really, really close to everybody's pre-tournament favorites for the worst two teams. Yeah. Though, being in the finals. And it was crazy. Like we said, there was even fewer of the top dogs in this tournament than there are in the winter premiere. We didn't see Complexity. I don't think we saw Kungarna. I think they stepped out as well. But why don't you give these guys the top four here and see just how many of these teams people actually recognize and know? So
we had LG in the top four, which was from the NGE, so no surprise there. Hammers Esports. I hadn't heard of them either. Spicy Boys. Is this like week 3 Overwatch? Where like,
sure. Yeah. No,
is this a reincarnation of Maidong? And Rise Nation, who we have heard a decent amount about, don't actually have a joke for them, but not a top tier team to say the least. But and we saw Hammers Esports trounce LG 3-0 in the finals. Like, what is going on? Yeah,
it was definitely really, really impressive. And all jokes aside, we we're going to make jokes about who are Hammers Esports. We've never heard of those guys. We've heard of them. Okay, they were Bird Noises before this, but it's way more fun to just pretend like they came completely out of nowhere. They got sponsored for a reason. They're a quality team. They've never done anything like they did this weekend. I don't care how much you've heard of them. I mean, you pretty much have to follow Overwatch as much as we do in order to really know much about this team, and they were really, really impressive throughout the entire day. I honestly think after one tournament, I'm sitting here going, we might, it's very possible, have a new best Reinhardt in the game. He is out of this. Super is so ridiculously good at Reinhardt, it makes me want to play him, and that's saying more than I could ever, like, I don't know if you guys understand my hatred for Reinhardt, but I've played him since watching this tournament some, because, and like in quick play too, because he just like legitimately thought it would be fun to play him and try to be super. But no, I mean, if you're not familiar with this roster, you've got Rob 420, you've got Jake. I'm not 100%. I think his name's Jake in game. You've got Vol, you've got Super, Avast, and Silk Thread. I don't know. That name doesn't sound right to me. But anyways, that is at least the majority of the roster. Yeah, Silk Thread, for whatever reason, it doesn't sound right, but I'm going to assume it is. Yeah, they had just a phenomenal showing in this tournament across the board. I thought they did a really good job predominantly with their communication. I thought that's what really won the weekend for them. I haven't seen too many teams get aggressive and push the spawn door at the end of a map as early as they did, and they were really smart about it. One play really comes to mind. They were defending on Dorado, and it was in the streets phase, and they ended up holding in the streets phase before the second point got captured. And what they were able to do is, as time ran out, they all start to flood back into the marketplace area. Okay, and you've got Super going in a wide arc along the left around the statue and everything like that. And while he's making that move, you've got Diva throwing her ultimate up into the air over top of everything in the middle of the marketplace right to the door. It forced them all back into the door and gave Super this cover to move in to the side of the spawn door. And then they all walk out after the Diva explosion, hammer down, everybody floods in, kills 4 of them. A couple got behind them to go contest for overtime, but they just go back there, clean up, and it was I don't even think they actually touched the point. It was just really, really impressive the way they just out-communicated everybody else. Everything seemed really fluid to me. They dictated the pace of play throughout almost the entire tournament. And really, I don't even know that they were in a closely contested match for almost the entire time outside of our match of the week. They did play Luminosity in the upper bracket finals, and it went to 3-2, and Hammers was able to pull that out. So it was less competitive in the finals. Obviously, the Gosu events, you have the winner bracket is up a map going into the last round. So we did have that to contend with and help to that 3-0 score in the finals. But I mean, it was just absolutely incredible watching the Luminosity and the Hammers match that was the upper bracket finals. So make sure you check that out. I will go ahead and look for that link right now so that way I can post it on the website under the VOD section.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see a relatively no-name team in Hammers Esports. Like we said, they were Bird Noises, recently signed, I believe, like within the past month for sure. I think last 2 or 3 weeks, honestly. But it's another one of those things where, like, Hammers Esports, I've never heard of that organization before at all. So I think relatively new organization in Hammers Esports. So my guess, just based on what we know about these types of Overwatch contracts, probably 3-month, 4-month maybe contract. So it'll be interesting to see, like, who knows what we know about Overwatch League in 3 or 4 months. Who knows, like, what teams are looking to get into Overwatch in 3 or 4 months. Who knows, what Hammers Esports, the organization, wants to do in 3 or 4 months. But it'll be really, really interesting. Yeah, they joined Twitter in March of 2016. Hammers Esports did. So
Yeah, they're definitely a newer organization, and from everything I'm seeing, they do have a bit of a specialty towards the mobile side of things. So they have some Hearthstone players, they have some Clash Royale players, Vainglory, 2 games I've never heard of, and there's not even a section on their website for the Overwatch team yet. Clearly, I think that should change, as nobody cares about Vainglory.
Vainglory is kind of cool. It's fun.
It's okay, but it's a MOBA.
Oh, gigantic! I gotcha. That's another like Overwatch-esque clone.
Gotcha. But yeah, so I mean, like we've been saying, it's so great. I mean, it took all of I want to say 13 seconds of watching them play for me to just be rooting for them nonstop the entire way. So I mean, it was really, really fun to basically pick the upstart. I mean, Hexagrams was even saying, and this going into their second match on stream, he's like, I didn't think we should have even put them on stream. Like, it was not, they weren't a team that you expected to do anything. They were just like, well, you know, we got Cloud9 over there, we got Fnatic over there, we got, you know, Complexity didn't want to do it. They're practicing for the land they got to go to, and then it was just, all right, well, let's throw Hammers in there. They newly got sponsored. You know, we've heard of Bird Noises before. We know who they are a little bit. And then they just went on an absolute tear. And I'm going to be really, really curious to see the next coming events. Obviously, we might not be getting back the top end of the teams from Apex quite yet, but I don't care if we have them there or not. I still want to see if Hammers is able to just completely dictate the pace of play against everybody they play against in the middle bracket still. I mean, if they can do that, I'll be even more excited to see them mix things up with the Enviouses and the Cloud9s and the Fanatics that aren't here right now. And just seeing these new teams come in, like you said earlier, how much more excited can I possibly be for the league to see the teams that try to evaluate the talent and develop talent? Like, that's one of the coolest things. No, even if the Bills are just terrible, and they haven't been terrible in a while, despite all the jokes and the memes. Even when they are terrible, that's one of the things you watch. Well, they got that new draft pick, right? Like the new player. Mm-hmm. Is he going to be any good? How's he going to mix with the team? You want to see, you look for signs of development, and it makes it worth watching when you feel like you own a piece of the team, you know, in your fandom, at least. That's how you pay for it anyways. So I can't wait to watch them continue to get better. I do expect a bit of a backslide from them, but I mean, if what they did so well was their communication, which is what I saw when I watched it, that's not a streaky thing. I mean, you either have clear comms and you have people that understand it, or you don't. And from what I saw, they seemed to have an understanding of what they needed to be doing, and they sure seemed to be good at following whoever's instructions were being given and executing it. They were really, really impressive this weekend.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Like, the mechanical skills of Overwatch, like, yes, you can develop those. You know, obviously, like the Pluppies, the IDD QDs, the Shadowburns of the world, they're in a tier of their own. But people who aren't those players, like, what is the difference between the like number 78 ranked player and the number 178 ranked player in terms of skill? Probably not that much, honestly.
Right.
But having a team that is so well in sync with each other, it is definitely more valuable than the raw skill necessarily. I mean, we've been talking about this for literally months. Like, back in the old days of Cloud9 with Twinston, like we've literally been preaching this for so long.
Yeah, I remember this conversation being had with Phelan after my first tournament. And basically him saying the same thing, drawing on his Halo thing. Like, I mean, even though it was Fnatic and at the time it was Nautilus that crushed my face in, he even said, he goes, mechanically speaking, it probably wasn't near the difference that it looked like in mechanical skill between my team of relative randoms. I mean, Ninja Nick was there on my team, and we had some other guys that I've seen around. I mean, Smizley, I don't remember seeing him on a team, but he stayed active in the community and things like that. And some of those guys have completely disappeared, but not all of them. And it was all about just team communication. I mean, you couldn't turn a corner. You didn't turn a corner and find one guy. You know, it wasn't like, I missed the Reaper in the corner. It was, I missed all 6. Like, they're all waiting through that door for me.
Right.
And just as soon as you step out of line in one spot, the call out's in, they attack, and you die so fast you can't even see straight.
It's not like, oh, well, we've got 4 guys who are all at 25% HP. It's like, we killed this guy, then we killed this guy, then we killed this guy, and your whole team's destroyed.
Right.
Which is exactly how it should be. And I don't know why I didn't think of this before in talking about this, but me and my buddy used to play 2-on-2 pickup basketball. And to preface this, I'm a decent basketball player. He was slightly less than decent. We were not the greatest in terms of skill rating. We were not the highest rated team. However, we have been playing basketball together for 5+ years, just all throughout, like actually probably more than that, like elementary, middle school, high school, and we're in college when I'm talking about at this point. We've been playing 2-on-2 basketball for so long that we were doing things where we weren't even looking at each other, but we knew exactly where we were going to be. I would drive and I would just toss the ball behind me because I knew he was there. He would drive and would just throw the ball up to where he knew I would be because we'd done this a million times. Granted, we're not great players. We're all right players playing against, if you just looked at it, pen and paper, like the teams we were playing against, the guys we were playing against were better than us skilled wise, but we would win. We would be so good at 2v2. Wow, that's the first time I ever called basketball 2v2. 2-on-2 basketball. Because of that coordination and that just like it almost is like an unspoken like telepathy. But it's not. It's obviously not telepathy. It's just we know where we're going to be.
Instincts.
Exactly. It's exactly instincts.
I'm starting to really develop it with my twos partner in Rocket League.
Yeah.
You know, I can put a ball off a backboard, and I haven't seen my teammate in, I don't even know, 3 minutes. You know, something like that. Like on my screen, he hasn't been there in a while. That's 3 minutes is more than half the game, so it's probably more like 30 seconds. But I mean, 30 seconds is enough time to go back and forth the court twice, so that's plenty of time. And I'll just put it off the backboard, and I know he's going to be there. It's a trust that you have, and it's a instinct to know. You know, I just know this is where he when I'm the up man and he's in the back waiting for the play. I know this is where he likes to be. So this is where I put the ball. You know, and you get such a feel for it, and it matters so much. And I really think in a lot of the matches this week, they were probably Hammers was not mechanically the better team, but like you said, in all games and in all team sports, everything it holds true that the communication matters just as much, if not more, than skill at the game.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And we've literally been talking about this for months and months and months. Like you said, we had this conversation with Phelan, who I think was gone after, like, before episode 5.
Yeah, he didn't make it too long.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Phelan. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting, and I think we almost talked about the Alienware as long as the NG, so I'm not too upset about it.
Almost, and I do have something else I want to mention though.
Go ahead.
Let's not drown out the fact. Let's not let Hammers completely soak up all the love from these new upstart teams, because Spicy Boys were in fact Spicy Boys this weekend in their matchups, and they went, I think, 3rd place is where they finished. They dropped to LG in the lower bracket finals. But Decop, Kosi, Spo, Dreamcasper, Tig, and Sickness make up that roster. A couple of those names you'll have seen around. Spo made the call-outs a long time ago that we talked about on the show the one time. Decop's been around. Sickness has been around. Tig, Kosi, and Dreamcasper are all newer players to me. Dreamcasper seemed to be a bit of a flex, like their Swiss Army knife type player. Played a lot of Roadhog, played some Soldier 76, things like that. So he's definitely, he reminded me a lot of Jesus in the fact that he just kind of, when I first saw him, I go, man, he's really good. But I just don't know this name from anywhere. Like
Yeah.
it's just hasn't been on my radar. And they're really, really looking really, really good so far. Their overall all-time win percentage, they're at a 73% win rate, 29-11. So just, I mean, not something that you normally see. And when you look at they beat Rise this past weekend. Their losses came to Luminosity, Hammers, and FaZe Clan. So, I mean, nobody there. They're beating the teams that you haven't heard of before, even though they're one of the teams that you probably haven't heard of before. So I expect this to be another team to kind of catch up and get a sponsorship. And, man, you never know. I mean, I don't necessarily think Hammers Esports had a ton of connections in the first-person shooter world to really, hook them up with a coach or something like that to really change things drastically for Bird Noises. But you never know with these teams that aren't sponsored yet, the Spicy Boys and the Kungarnas, if one of the big names grabs them and makes a really good connection with a coach from an old first-person shooter, something like that, you could see any one of these teams really break out into that very top tier with Envy and Cloud9 and Fnatic on the NA side. Quickly.
And I know I don't remember what team they were talking about, but I know that Hex and I believe Jason Kaplan and maybe even ZP, they were talking about during the cast, one of the teams has like some of the best Team Fortress 2 players, period, on them. I don't remember. I honestly don't remember. It might have been Spicy Boys. The more I'm thinking about it, the more it sounds like it was either Spicy Boys or Hammers. But like, we're starting to see some of these other FPS pros kind of realize that Overwatch is legit now. We didn't see a huge oh well, Overwatch came out, now every single FPS player is coming in Overwatch. A lot of them have stayed. I know that when Overwatch was in beta, that TF2 announced a competitive mode that they finally released 15 years into the game. I think some players still kind of latched on to that, but no, that's done. We saw blanking from Liquid, Rafa. We saw Rafa from Quake come over a little while ago, and I'm interested to see Overwatch has been slowly growing. When do we start seeing Halo pros come over? When do we start seeing Gears of War pros?
Never.
When do we start yeah, they're not going to make the teams. When do we start seeing Call of Duty pros? When do we see Counter-Strike pros? Now, I think we're a very long ways away from Counter-Strike pros defecting over to Overwatch. Counter-Strike is a top 3 esport, if not top 2.
And for sharing a genre, they are very different games. So
Absolutely.
There's always going to be the arcade shooter camp, and then there's going to be the realistic military style shooter camp. And I don't think CS is ever going to go away.
CS is not a good example, but Halo and Quake.
We don't need it to be a wholesale change, though. It could just be a couple guys too.
Exactly, but I feel at some point, when Overwatch is very clearly above Call of Duty, for instance, or Halo, and it's just so much more lucrative, do the top Halo players come over to Overwatch, and is that another imagine Overwatch League exists, and Overwatch League has done its first year, it's awesome. Halo is still doing whatever Halo is doing, it's still successful, but the Cloud9 team for Halo is just we're just gonna go play Overwatch. That's a potentially whole new wave of potentially a very good team coming out of nowhere and disrupting the league, which I think just even if that's a very unlikely scenario, the thought that could happen is just interesting to me. It's I don't know, the Cavaliers in basketball being yeah, I think football is a little more popular. Let's just go join the Bills or something. Obviously they wouldn't go to the Bills, but let's go play for the Browns, and because they're from Cleveland. Let's start our own NFL team, something crazy like that. Obviously it won't happen in sports, although we do have some multi-sport athletes, but it's much more possible in esports for sure. And I think that is just an interesting thing to even think about. I mean, we could even see like League of Legends pros come over, even though it doesn't. But I don't know.
I was just going to say that literally Dyrus has been streaming a lot of Overwatch lately. Like I peeked in and saw a little bit of his stream, and it's something that's definitely possible. I mean, it's not going to be as big or as high impact because of the differences between the games, but there's definitely enough similarities in just the skill shot ability, and there's nothing to say these League of Legends pros don't have a secret love of FPSs that they've never given up. You know, they could literally come from anywhere and everywhere at the exact same time. So,
yeah, it's just an interesting thought to posit. But we are running a little bit low on time, so let's move right along to.
Let's break it down.
We're gonna break it down real quick today. We've got a couple of interesting stories to talk about. We saw Debet now officially off of Cloud9. We saw my boy Man of Snow no longer with Renegades. I'll post the official, I guess not official, but the story from the Score Esports about some of the allegations that were made and whatnot. I don't want to put words in people's mouths because I don't have the article open right now. So definitely take a look at that. But it was there's a little bit of drama involved. We talked about it a little bit in the pre-show, and it's interesting. So I'll leave that for you guys to take a look at and decipher yourselves. But I don't know. Do we want to do some of the predictions? We're a little bit low on time for the metagame, or do we want to kind of wait and talk about it next week?
Well, you know, I really haven't had much opportunity to play on it either way. And I don't necessarily think there's going to be huge changes, but I mean, we can go into it briefly if you want. I'll kind of give you my opinion, and you can kind of just add to it however you want. I expect there to be a drop-off in the number of tanks. I mean, big surprise. That's the goal here, right? So I think we're going to go back to the old days of 222, and we're going to see DPS come back into things a little bit. I don't know that any of the nerfs are character killing, though. I really don't think they are. So apart from the initial overreaction that is ever so popular amongst pro players to nerfs and buffs, I do expect to see stark drop-offs to Diva and also Roadhog, and then they'll slowly kind of creep their way back in, and that's going to mean good things for Zarya players as she's still stuck around. Reinhardt's not going anywhere. Lucio's still going to be that second healer, and until they give somebody a global AoE speed boost, that's never going to change. And I don't know. As far as supports go, we're going to see more of a blend between Zenyatta and Ana, as some teams are kind of already doing that anyways. They're probably just wrong, but at the same time, they're still doing it. And in an effort to just try something new, you know, Discord definitely helps shred tanks faster. So it's not the most ridiculous thing ever, but nonetheless, we should see more of that. I would love to see, I don't necessarily expect to see some variance in the supports that see play. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see if it's quite that healthy of a spot for the support balance. But time will tell. I don't know. I think everything's going to kind of settle down and be a little less crazy. It's going to be the most exciting, unexciting balance change.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to see a lot of the overreactions like we've seen time and time again. People heroes get the smallest amount of nerf, and people are just like, oh, well, I'm not using that character anymore. They're done.
Unplayable.
Yeah, exactly. Just looking at it, like, Diva does not seem like she got a very huge nerf. I mean, she still has the same amount of health. Her health is distributed differently. But for the most part, I think she's going to be just as survivable. Her damage is down slightly, which I don't think is going to be super noticeable. Like, it's either not going to be noticeable or it's going to be super noticeable in spots where that extra 6 damage over a second or 2 seconds or whatever is going to be super noticeable. Like maybe I don't know. You can't 1v1 a Roadhog as easily or something like that. I don't know. I think Roadhog is still going to be played. The hook, I think people like overreacted to like how bad the nerf of the hook was. I don't think it's actually that bad. I think Zarya is going to see a lot of play. Nothing changed with her. She's always been very good. And actually, I think she got a silent buff. Slasher was saying something about her not, I don't remember what it was, but some like niche interaction that's actually not niche. It's seen a lot in tournament play, but something that you wouldn't necessarily like think of. I can't remember. It's something with Graviton Surge, I think. But she got a slight buff, silent buff. So I think we're going to see a lot of her.
If I had to guess, I would just say it's the expected drop-off of D.Va just not being there to absorb all those Zarya.
It's that, but it's actually like something has changed about her. Not like it's a silent buff in that they didn't announce it in the patch, or at least the PTR notes. Not a indirect buff.
I don't know. I've never seen them do that for this game, and until they do it.
The only reason I think is because Slasher was talking about it during the tournament. So take that for what it's worth. Slasher is
it just means he was salty about
a man of tall tales and man buns.
It's true. He does like his man buns.
He certainly does.
One more thing I forgot too that you kind of this conversation reminded me of is as D.Va drops off, Reaper comes back. The defense matrix eating the ultimate was just all too punishing, and
McCree too, right?
Too easy to spot. McCree's still just going to be out damaged by Soldier, I feel like.
But if we're going to be seeing 2-2-2, like who's the second support the second DPS?
Well, I think you'll see Soldier, Reaper. I think Pharah's been really strong. I mean, she started to come into play and see some play recently. Now, if Soldier becomes a mainstay, maybe that doesn't happen. But if there's ever a time when Soldier's not on the field, I think obviously Pharah is a really strong selection as well.
Yeah.
There's still going to be plenty of teams running 3 tanks.
True.
Ninjas in Pajamas is not going to stop. They didn't start it because it was good. They started it because they liked it, and then everybody said, "Oh,
and they have Himsy on their team.
It's really good, right?" Right. If there's anybody that can still make people salty about hooks, it's probably Himsy, right? So we'll have to wait and see exactly what goes on. But for the most part, I think things are going to revert more than innovate further. Like we're going to drop back to what we've been seeing before triple tank.
Yeah,
and
I mean, I don't know what people. I honestly don't know what people are expecting. Like, what is Reddit's perfect meta? Oh wait, I already did define it. It's literally mystery heroes. That's what that's what r/Overwatch wants the Overwatch meta to be. It's literally mystery heroes, where every time someone dies, they come back with a new hero, and we end up with Bastion, Widowmaker, Sombra, Mercy. Like it we've been watching it and watching the meta. And critiquing and actually thinking about the meta for long enough to know that it doesn't, and playing Magic for long enough to know that it doesn't matter. There's always going to be a boogeyman. There's always going to be a best deck or a best team comp or a best type of team comp. Something. Like it was Fantastic Four, then it was McCree, then it was Orb, Double Orb, then it was Twinston, Tusio, Trey, then it was like it's always something. I don't know. Then it was Beyblade. Then it was Beyblade. Then what do you want it to be? Is it Mystery Heroes? I think that's the only way people are going to be happy, is that if the competitive format literally becomes Mystery Heroes.
Well, that would be the worst case scenario. It would
be the worst, and we would quit, and we would just move on to the Clash Royale podcast. It's okay. We have a backup plan.
As long as we substitute that for Breakaway, I'm in. But anyways, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be really interesting. Really, any of the DPS heroes can come back. I mean, we don't know. The Sombra strategy has been seeing play. Tracers just seemed really, really good at times to me watching these events, partially just because of the skill of the people that I'm watching. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to go back to, I really think, like a Wild Wild West, and I really hope people don't just get lazy and mimic whatever the team that's winning the tournament is doing and go from there. I really want to see teams kind of try something new and really look to innovate. I don't expect it, but that's what I'm really hoping for. So.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and we won't talk too much more about it, but we see this almost type of like groupthink, I think, happen with a lot of these competitive teams. 'Cause, like, even though these people are on different teams, they're all in the OW. They all, like, a lot of at least the ringers, they all know each other. They all play with each other, they scrim with each other, and they talk strategy with each other. And at least in my experience with competitive Magic players, like local competitive Magic players, like, all very good players, don't get me wrong, and all very good from a strategic standpoint, but there are very few dissenting voices. And I don't mean that, people are just like sheep or whatever, but like if someone's doing well and they say something, it's like, well, okay, that actually sounds like a good idea. And you end up like, and if you're practicing with these people all the time and, it's a community, the community agrees that like this is the good, like it's very hard to go against the grain, especially when you're hearing like, oh, triple tank is working all the time, triple tank's working all the time, triple tank's the best, the best, the best, the best, the best. It's like, okay, well, maybe triple tank is the best. And I think a lot of people, it's hard, and a lot of people just don't try to like remove themselves from this echo chamber and like actually try things for the sake of trying them and actually figure out what's good for them. They instead like, and it's a shortcut. You it's like, okay, this is what the meta is. Let's base all of our decisions and all of our thought processes off of the meta, and then go from there. And I think a lot of people end up with the same, those same types of conclusions. But until we see like the Ninjas in Pajamas, which are just like, yeah, we're just going to do our own thing, or the old Cloud9s who are innovating, and these innovator type teams, we have not seen. And maybe it's just the format of Overwatch esports right now. We have not seen teams really innovate at a grand scale. We've only seen like a handful of teams, like literally a handful of teams, ever do that to any amount of success. It has been very hard to find the perfect balance of a team is skilled enough to actually try things that aren't standard, and also they want to try things that aren't standard. We have not seen a lot of those teams, and I'm hoping that once we start seeing teams who have been together for months and months and months, and who have team houses and who aren't necessarily hanging out in the OW all the time, they're practicing with their teams, maybe we'll start seeing that sort of stuff.
Yeah, like you said, not a lot of examples of that. Really, only one that comes to mind, or three examples of innovation come to mind, and two of them completely like ruined the game. Yeah, but I'm gonna say somebody, I don't even remember who it was, and it's probably a good thing because I'd hate him forever, invented the double orb comp, and then that just caught like wildfire, and then Ninjas in Pajamas really perfected and rolled out the triple and quad tank lineups faster and first, and those both got adopted. The one that was adopted that never got answered, it just got destroyed by the game itself, was Cloud9's Double Winston. That was something nobody else was running. Nobody else could even come close to making, like they couldn't beat single Reaper with it, and Cloud9 did it better than anybody else and dominated the competitive scene for a while because of it. And that's really the only example that comes to mind of a team that did it and was successful with it. And I don't know. I'm hoping. I don't know. Anytime you get these roster shakeups, there's some team that is going to change drastically. Like, is Envy going to be completely terrible, or is just Hammers just go nuts and carry off with their momentum and just go crazy and take over everything? Well, who knows? We're about one day from finding out.
But all things being said, very interesting, very interesting time to be in Overwatch esports. But yeah, we've got a couple other things, but they're kind of one-offs that we don't need to talk about right now. We can talk about them later. But last thing I wanted to do is our last segment we always do, and that's Soldier Says. And I want to preface this might be the dumbest Soldier Says I've ever done, and it's like a stupid rhyming poem. But it applies, and we've talked about it for quite some time. So without further ado. A group of 2 means points for you. 3 or more, MMR straight to the floor. Literally the dumbest thing I've ever thought of. But we've talked about this before. If you want to grind ranked, do OQ. If you want to lose ELO and MMR, 3, 4, 5, or 6 stack.
Yeah. Nothing quite ruins 4 people trying to coordinate and be a good team than just 2 randoms that couldn't care less.
That aren't in team chat, that pick
yeah.
Bastion. That are just so bad.
This probably doesn't hold through anymore once you get into like mid to high diamond and master, but at least in the wood tier, like find yourself one buddy who knows what he's doing. Pick heroes that alts combo well together, and if you're in gold and silver tier, you're going to be the only people in the game comboing alts together. You're going to be only 2 people in the game doing anything together.
I can say you can grind from silver to platinum just playing with two people that know what they're doing. Granted, it took me forever, but you can do it. Just playing Diva and Zarya. Like that's really all you need.
Maybe less Diva and more Zarya now, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem transitioning over to Zarya, except for the fact that I still have a golden Diva gun, so I'm going to keep playing her until I die. Okay. And by that, I mean I get a golden gun. Probably going to get a golden Zarya gun. I don't know. But that is... Oh, one last thing I wanted to talk about that I wanted to talk about earlier, but I forgot. So, screw me. We do have a episode 53.5 that you guys should check out. It is an interview with the CEO of Counterlogic Gaming, Devin Nash. Really awesome interview. Talked a little bit about the Overwatch team that they picked up, as well as a surprisingly high number of tangents, all of which were awesome. Devin's a great guy. All of his links and stuff are in that video, so definitely check that out. But Death, if you're interested in the process of how they went about signing the team, we do probe him a little bit for information about that. What did they look for? What metrics did they use? Things like that. So whether you're casual, competitive, or just enjoy watching tournaments, I really think somewhere in that hour of interview, there is definitely something for everybody. So. Yes, and there is a there was a spoiler that was accidentally said, but I did go back through and edit it.
You're a tryhard now.
And also, it is technically right now, it is not on iTunes because I'm an idiot, but it will be by the time you hear this in podcast world. Yes. So, Death, do we have any last minute shout outs? Anything you wanna get in before we get going?
No, as always, check out the website if you're looking for VODs or information about us, how to reach us, how to talk to us, highnoonpodcast.com.
Yes, always go to highnoonpodcast.com. And also, if you guys listen on the podcast world, we do record live every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern-ish. Twitch.tv/TheBlevins. You can always check us out there. All of our links and everything is over at highnoonpodcast.com. Huge thanks to Matt Chirino, Season 1 sponsors. Huge thanks to Adam Hoek for producing the High Noon, the McCree outro music that you are going to be hearing in just a couple minutes. All that good stuff. For Deathblow, I am the Blevins. And remember, guys, it's High Noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. He threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
Shame. Shame. Shame.